So you have two high-end Android phones that come out on T-Mobile. What do we do in Phone Dog Land? We dogfight them. That's what we do. What's going on, guys? I'm Aaron from PhoneDog.com. We dogfight them? Pit them together at least in a dogfight to see which one comes out on top. On one hand, you have the Samsung Galaxy S2. Now, this is T-Mobile's variant, and it's a little bit different from the other ones. It has a dual-core 1.5 gigahertz Snapdragon S3 CPU, so not that Exynos processor that we're familiar with on the other Samsung devices, but it still has a 4.52-inch Super AMOLED Plus display, 8-megapixel camera, and a ton of goodies to make it an awesome Android handset. It's available for $229, but you also have the HTC Amaze 4G, which is available now a little bit more expensive by about $30, but has an awesome build quality with some metal accents on the sides and on the back, and has that same processor with a 4.3-inch display and an 8-megapixel camera. Which one of these is the one to have? Which one of these do you want to walk home with? We'll find out that and more in the dogfight, but first, special thanks to my boys at Best Buy. Got to give them some love because they hook us up with phones like this and like this, like I do that, for use in our one-ball bandit game. When you walk into Best Buy Mobile to get either of these devices, or heck, any device, you'll walk out working. They help you set up your email, your web, and so much more. So when you walk out, you're good to go. You don't have to waste your time doing email, setting up anything. At Best Buy Mobile, you walk out working. But enough of that, let's check it out. So let's take a look at keyboards on both of these devices and see kind of what they come with. Now, I will tell you, after working with both of these devices, it really is a benefit to have the 4.52-inch display. I thought it was going to be too big, and it really is borderline too large. But the benefit is, whether it's portrait or landscape, the keyboard is nice and large and easy to use. Now, you get the Samsung keypad on this, and you get swipes. So two different keyboard options depending on what appeals to you. And as always, you can download stuff from the Android market itself. The Gingerbread keyboard's available, Swift Key, and a bunch of others, that range everywhere from free all the way up to $4.99 per month. So you got some added stuff, and you can see here, we'll go back and say, the Quick Brown Fox wants to open up a checking account at Wells Fargo in Fargo, North Dakota. Fargo, North Dakota. That's some terrible spelling, but I keep the autocorrection turned off because I don't care for the way Samsung's autocorrect works. And you can see in landscape mode, for somebody that's new to an on-screen QWERTY, or somebody that's not comfortable typing on an on-screen, whatever the situation is, it's nice to have the larger display. If you have large thumbs, it's hard to type on. Having this 4.52-inch display is really beneficial in landscape mode, both in landscape and portrait, but particularly in landscape, it's nice to have the added screen real estate. Now over here, 4.3-inch display, so a little bit smaller, but we can go here to this T-Mobile sample text for a second and say the Quick Brown Fox wants some booze. Quick Brown Fox wants some booze. First thing that came to mind. Don't ask me why, it's Friday. The Quick Brown Fox wants some booze. You can use that in portrait or in landscape mode. He's a drunk fox apparently, but you can see 4.3 inches. It's not small by any means on this display, but for somebody that's absolutely new to an on-screen keyboard, or somebody that's not comfortable, I'd probably recommend the larger display over the smaller one. Now on this one, you get two keyboard options. You get, and it's two actually within one. You don't get a separate swipe option on this. What you do get is HTC's on-screen keyboard, and then you get what's called HTC Trace input. It's their kind of version of swipe. So you can see, I can just use the same keyboard and migrate back and forth. Hi there, how are you doing? And then can shift right back to typing normally. Well, apparently that's not typing normally, but you get the idea. It's both in one keyboard. Nice to have that that option. So keyboards, both are equipped with nice options there. And let's take a look at web browsing. Now, both of these devices are capable of supporting, or they do support, T-Mobile's HSPA Plus 42 megabits per second service. So these are both 4G devices, and debate as much as you want to about HSPA Plus being 4G, but what I will say is they both support 42 megabits per second, and it's pretty fast. You're never going to get 42 megabits per second speeds. It's a theoretical cap. You're going to see speeds, if you're in a 42 megabits per second area, or an area that supports that speed, you're going to see speeds between roughly 5 megabits per second and as high as maybe 12 or 13 megabits per second, with bursts according to T-Mobile, of up to like 18 or 20. So you can see some fast speeds, but it definitely is fast. It's not as fast as LTE, Verizon's 4G LTE consistently, but I do find that it's a nice alternative, and it's an alternative that's much cheaper overall than using LTE, given Verizon's monthly service plans. So we can load up Phone Dog on both of these and load that up, and you can see it's relatively quick. Now I'm in Uptown Charlotte. My office is in Uptown, so you can see it's running relatively quickly. Here, but I will say my home in North Charlotte and various areas I've tested, I like the way that sounds, various areas I've tested it at in the city, I've been very pleased all across the board. So as long as you're in an area that supports the backhaul, the 42 megabits per second backhaul, you should be very pleased with the data speeds overall. So one place, I said this in the Sprint Epic 4G Touch review, one place where I really appreciate the 4.52-inch display on this sucker is in media. Whether you're browsing the web, you're watching a video, you're, doing anything that's media-based, taking pictures and looking at them on the display, it's really nice to have the added screen real estate. It really does make a difference. And even though this is only a few inches smaller, it really does, it's noticeable when you're doing stuff like browsing the web and more. So PhoneDog's loaded up over here, and you can see pinch to zoom relatively quick. And one thing I like about Samsung and TouchWiz 4.0, you have the option to place your thumbs on the display and use the thumbs to zoom in and zoom out. Now, one thing I will say is this Galaxy S2, in comparison to the other two, which are both running Samsung's Exynos processor at 1.2 gigahertz, I do notice a little bit of a stutter when I'm using the web. When I'm doing some system-intensive stuff, I do see a little bit more of a stutter on this device. It is a noticeable difference, but that's just because I've worked with all three of these devices, as opposed to, maybe somebody else not noticing because they're just getting this device and they're getting this device alone. That said, if you've used the international Galaxy S2 or you're moving from one of the other carriers' Galaxy S2 devices to this, you will notice a difference in the speed. I do notice it, whether it's browsing the web, looking at videos, I see little stutters from time to time. I don't know if it's just because the Snapdragon CPU is not optimized for TouchWiz or what it is, but you can see I pinch out here and it brings up PhoneDog. I can load a separate window, and I like the fact that you can bring in these little preview, or it has a little preview box. So I'm working on the Atrix 2 unboxing. Let's say I want to shift and then I go back. Well, I know right where I left off, and I can go right back into the Atrix 2 unboxing. Now over here, 4.3-inch display, and you can see relatively fast here. Also, and you get that same preview mode through HTC, and I'll show you, we can add a separate window, and I can easily go back and click on that and zoom right and focus right in on that, and then go back to Windows, and you can see it leaves me right where I left off. So both, browser experience is great on both of these, but I do have to give the edge to the Galaxy S2 in the browser department, just because when it comes to media, having that display is absolutely crucial. Let's load up Quadrant Standard on both of these devices and take a look at the speeds there. Quadrant Standard, and we'll load those up. Now, call quality's been relatively decent on both of these devices, as has battery life. This one has a 1,850 milliamp hour battery. This one has a 1,730 milliamp hour battery. So same battery as the Evo 3D, the Sensation XE, and a couple of other HTC devices. Battery's been pretty decent on both of these. I find that, with moderate use, both of these last about 11 to 12 hours before they power off. And your use is obviously going to the battery is going to be dependent on your use, so something to keep in mind. But earpiece quality is great. Call quality is relatively decent on both of these. I've been really impressed with the call quality on the Amaze 4G. It's done a great job, and I just can't get over the build quality. So it's very impressive as well. So both of these are great. Let's take a look at the benchmark here and see what we got on the Galaxy S2. 3,029 over here. So 3,029 on the T-Mobile Galaxy S2. Over here, we'll take a look. And keep in mind, these are all, I always do these benchmark tests, 2,296. I always do these just to show you, what Quadrant Standard pulls in. But it's important to note, the speeds have been almost identical to my naked eye across both of these devices. So again, it's not indicative of day-to-day performance, but more like a benchmark that you can use to compare them to your current device or some of the other devices on the market. Let's take a look at speed test, and I'll just show you some of the results because, whenever I do these speed tests, I think they know that I'm on camera because you can see these low speed tests that I got the other day when I was doing videos on both of these. The low speed test, it seems like it knows when I'm doing these on camera, so it tells me or gives me a low number. But you can see here, I've seen speeds on both of these, 10 megabits per second, 11.5, almost 12 down here. These are all on T-Mobile's HSPA Plus 42 megabits per second network. Now you can see 5 here, 5, 7.64. So I've been really impressed across the board. We'll take a look here and begin the test on both of these. Let me make sure these are both running on the same server. Change that to Chester, wherever. Chester, South Carolina. Chester's where the party's at. And we'll load up speed test on both of these, and we'll talk a little bit about the data scores overall. I've tested both of these in San Diego, the Charlotte metro area, and in New York, and I've been really pleased across the board with the data speeds. And keep in mind, it's 6 o'clock on a Friday. There is still some rush hour traffic, so the cell sites are pretty jammed right now, would be my guess. But you can see they're loading up right now. And again, I'm telling you, it's like the camera, it's like the speed test gods just know I'm shooting a video on this, and they're deliberately keeping me from getting decent scores. But you can see, it's obviously been much higher than that in day-to-day performance. But apparently right now, it's pretty low. So something to keep in mind, they've been pretty decent across the board and pretty equal across the board, so I can't really call a specific device one way or the other on this. What I can do is take you into the camera and take a look. HTC says this is the best camera available on any smartphone. Samsung one's nothing to scoff at either. We're going to take a picture of my, no we're not, because my coffee is white and it's going to go up against my desk. So we'll take a look here at this, the HTC Hero S, and we're going to load up HTC, or we're going to load it up half press to focus. Let's see what we can do here. Oops, nope, not going to count that one. Let's do this. And then we'll take a picture over here. Now the camera test, I hate to spoil it. Oh, hey, front-facing camera. Woo. Hate to spoil it for you, but the camera award definitely goes to the HTC Amaze 4G. And you can see some of these pictures here. We'll load this one up, for example. And you can see, I mean, even zoomed in, you can see the texture around the metal on the Hero S. You can see, I'll shift that one out of the picture. My hand, you can see details there. And we'll load up on this one. Still a great picture, don't get me wrong. But you can really just see the quality difference here when I'm zoomed in on both of these devices. So, Amaze 4G definitely wins Amaze 4G wins the camera cake, but the Galaxy S2 is nothing to scoff at either. So, all these are both fantastic devices. It's going to be a tough call. It's really going to depend on whether you want the larger display and the plasticky build quality, or if you want the display that's a little bit smaller, but the phone itself is more expensive, but the build quality is much, much better. So, Dogfight winner has to be declared, and, by a close margin, it's going to go. Are you ready for it? Drum roll, drum roll, drum roll. It's going to go to the Galaxy S2, and I'll tell you why. Actually, it's funny, I say the Galaxy S2 because it won the most number. The speed test, it's a little bit faster in speed tests. The screen is bigger, it's bigger for media. The smoother device, in my opinion, is the Amaze 4G. I like the build quality of it. But in terms of just overall, comparing apples to apples and calling it based on which one won the most number of things, the Galaxy S2 is the winner. Now, honestly, you can't go wrong with either one of these devices. If you want the build quality, go with the Amaze 4G. If you want the bigger display, go with the Galaxy S2. But just, it gets a slight edge because the bigger display is a big pro. The camera is not that bad in comparison to the 8-megapixel camera over here. It's close enough where it's kind of negated. And then the battery life is just ever so slightly better on the Galaxy S2. Much more coverage to come on PhoneDog.com with both of these devices. Keep it locked on the site for continuing coverage and more dogfights between these devices. It's going to be crazy, crazy, crazy. So be sure to keep it locked on PhoneDog.com. Like us on Facebook as well at Facebook.com/PhoneDog. We're always doing prizes. We always do some cool contests, and we talk, and we leave comments, and all of our content goes up there as well. So be sure to like our page, Facebook.com/PhoneDog. And hey, let me know what you think. You have the Amaze. You think I'm the worst reviewer ever because I picked the Galaxy S2. You think I'm the smartest reviewer ever because the Galaxy S2 stomps all over the Galaxy or the Amaze 4G and eats it for lunch. Hey, let me know. Follow me on Twitter, PhoneDog_Aaron, and on my personal Facebook page at Facebook.com/PhoneDogAB. Thanks so much for watching. Keep it locked on the site. And as I always say, we'll see you next time.